Hi, everyone. Welcome to another special edition of the One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. And today is going to be I think we're going to have a really fun day because our buddy Solomon Wilcots is back in the house. And before we do anything else, I've opened my first. I've been mad, been waiting for a while to open that first beer, but it's going to be a great day. And Rob Herking, we are talking a little football today.
We are, Dan, and welcome to the show. And I love the fact that you continue to say it was your first one. Didn't you say that the other day?
This is my first one today?
We found out about 5 minutes later that it was probably your 25th one because you were at the ATP. The lips were a little loose and slurred.
First one?
You can't tell.
First one at this location.
Yeah, first one.
That's
first one after 5:30
I think
p.m.
he's a better lawyer than you are.
I'm not trying to defend you. I'm trying to put you underneath the prison cement, Dan. Well, thank you, Dan, for that. It is going to be a great show today. We're going to break down some football. We got Mr. Wilcots in the house. Thank gosh. Love his analytics. And Mr. Kiefer, the fireman, is not playing with his host today, so that's good. Kelly's working.
it's going to be a good week. I don't go back to work till Tuesday.
Not
Thank God
really,
for Kelly weeks and shift trades.
not
Love
really
it,
surprising.
love it.
Not really surprising at all.
It's working smarter, not harder.
Well,
So, Solly, we were talking out in the main room out there, and we were talking about the show that has become the NFL draft.
Yes.
How do you feel? And I was listening to Mo Egger earlier today, and his the criticism that he had of what the NFL draft show has become is that you have all these people out there. They've got all the gear on, whether they're from Chicago or Seattle or every team has its own fan section.
Yeah.
And he said every single pick was greeted with absolute glee and joy. These people have no idea who some of these players are, and they're acting like, "No, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl, baby." I mean, they're going crazy and they're doing it for the TV cameras. I understand that.
I think they're rooting for their teams.
Sure they are.
I think when the teams make a pick, listen, it's hard for some of us who do this stuff every single day to know who these guys are.
Right.
So how can we expect the average fan to know who the guy is in the 6th round, the 7th round? But I do think they're there to support the team. They're there for a party is what they – I mean,
sure.
That's
why
the
not?
point. That's the point. And
Well, it definitely looked like a party.
Mo's like us. He's a diehard. And it's about the football. And no, they're there for the party. They're for the it's Kansas City. They're there for the music, for the ribs, for the food, and to rub elbows with the commish and many other players and the dignitaries that they run up there to make the announcements.
and it would be awesome. And what was it, 4 hours on Thursday night? I had a blast. We were watching it up here for the most part, but just the first round and everybody's waiting. And obviously a hometowner. I was waiting for number 28 pick to come up.
I know.
But I was also watching the quarterback shootout, and then the KY boy, Levis.
Will Levis. Will Levis.
Levis. And I at one point he walked in, and we'll get to that in a sec, but nonetheless, it's just entertaining to watch the stories, hear the stories. We didn't hear any of the stories, so I rewatched a little bit and read a little bit about it. But it's a good time.
Well, and the build-up, after the Super Bowl, all right, so who's drafting where? All right, so we know where those numbers are.
Yeah.
Who's going to trade picks?
Yeah.
And then, all right, so who's your team going to get? Whether it's the Bengals, whether it's the Vikings. I know we have some Minnesota people in the chats. Like, who are they going to get? You're also dealing with the drama of the Aaron Rodgers trade. When is that? Because that kind of led us up to the draft. Exactly.
They made sure, and the NFL was very smart. I remember my first year, I was working for ESPN. It was my first year covering the draft on a national level. And I had to fly out to New York, and we met. It was serious. It was 1998. Sounds like forever ago. And I remember the league, it was sort of like, no, this is entertainment. This is going to become the norm. We're going to do this, and we're going to drive ratings. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to whoever you're picking, whoever you're not going to take or whatever, say nothing. Pretend like everything's in play. This is the teams. This is everyone who's covering it. And you remember that year we had 2 quarterbacks coming out at the top of the draft, Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan Leaf.
And the Colts, I can tell you right now, they knew who their guy was, but they were sworn to secrecy. Why? To drive ratings. And it happened this year. You could see that. Carolina knew they were taking Bryce Young. They were like, oh, we don't know. It could be either one. Houston, they're not going to take C.J. Stroud.
Right.
Will Levis is climbing up the board. It's all about driving ratings. It's all about keeping the suspense packed in. You're a TV guy. I mean, we understand ratings,
Sure,
right?
you got to create those storylines.
That's right.
And the announcers have to know those storylines and be able to feed into them. And then you want to create that drama.
That's right.
Well,
and it's all baked in.
And then, of course, after the fact, you see all the clips of Josh McCown talking to C.J. Stroud. Yeah, man, we're going to hoop it up. We're going to hoop it up in Carolina. And all this shit comes out after the fact. And they're like, how pissed off is C.J.? How pissed off? Dude, he got drafted.
Well,
he got drafted.
Well, he was pissed.
I know he was pissed.
You could tell when he walked, he was emotional.
Well, he wants to be number one. Who doesn't?
I think more importantly, to be honest with you, he had to go through the ringers, like becoming a Supreme Court justice, right? You do all this hard work, and now you get there, you got your whole life unravels because they're parsing what you can and can't do. And so his intelligence came into question with this S2 testing. And
they don't do the Wonderlic anymore?
No, they do another test. Okay. It's called S2. And
right.
So it's about your processing, your anticipation, your adaptability. And the week leading up to it, I can tell you right now, because I do a show on this every day on Sirius XM NFL Radio, channel 88, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say promote your stuff.
But it became personal for him. And as it would be for any of us sitting at this table, no longer are they talking about your performance. We told all the kids, hey, put your performance on the field. The eye in the sky don't lie. Put up the stats. Win the games. He did all of those things. And now the week before the draft, we call it lying season. Bill Polian does, by the way. Calls it lying season. That teams will leak information about a player just to get them to fall so they can get them. And so you have all these things. This is Shakespearean at the highest level. I could tell you right now how to get the best players for the cheapest price. That means as they fall down the draft, it's competitive for all 32 teams. This league is the most competitive league in all of sports around the world. And I appreciate World Cup soccer and all, but ain't nothing like this. And that's what happened. So when you saw him get selected, you saw this emotion come over his face as he was walking and giving high five to people. But he thought he was going to fall. He thought he was going to be Will Levis still sitting in that room.
The issue is too, and you got to feel for these guys because my brother played college ball. He was recruited a little bit here and there, but they have been on a pedestal their entire grade school, high school career because they are the ones that stand out. And you look at the pool of prospects for college football. It's large. There's a ton of D1 schools. And then you look at the NFL paring down and you've got limited positions. And that's why this is probably one of the best leagues. I love the NFL just because it is the best of the best. It is a cream.
Yeah.
It is the shit. And I could not imagine sitting there waiting. And I mean, you have prepped, you have done everything. And his shit is on Front Street too. It's not like
that's right.
When I was in high school and they were talking about me being slow and all this other shit. It was,
they're not throwing it out.
It was a phone call to my mother saying, I think you might need to get him tested. This kid ain't right. No, this is out there on ESPN and NFL channel and all the other sports media and even not even sports media. Yeah. And that sucks for these kids. And they are still kids. They're really they're 19 to 23 maybe.
You'll be look, a lot of young players, they come here to Cincinnati. We help them find homes. We help them, purchase. And here's a good place. Here's where you want to be. Here's what you need. Here's the mindset. If there's players from the University of Colorado where I went to school, Josh Tupou and Chidobe Awuzie, these guys, I'm there for them, right? And then I'm talking with them and I like really young. Yeah. And I'm like, was I that guy?
Yeah,
sure.
Yes. You absolutely were.
They're really young. And imagine our kids, right? Getting that big of a job as soon as they leave school and the amount of responsibility heaped upon them to perform while under pressure with this kind of scrutiny. And now someone is dissecting a test that they took and forgetting about all the work that they put in on it. And so it impacts the young person, the player, particularly because it probably impacted his parents as well.
We had it twice daily back when we were growing up. You had the Enquirer in the morning and the Post in the afternoon in Cincinnati locally. These kids now are under a 24/7 news cycle where
exactly.
It's Twitter,
you
Insta,
can
everything.
touch it. You touch
you
it
can
all
get
the
criticized
every 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's unbelievable, and I couldn't imagine that. Thank God. Well, not for me because I was never getting close to any kind of sports that people would care about. But nonetheless, thank God I didn't have a phone and that constant scrutiny.
Yeah.
Well, and in that same vein, it seemed, and I'm going back maybe 5 or 6 years, it seemed at that time there was a trend. If you had a guy who was going to be a number 1 draft pick, there was someone out there who would go back and look at something they put on their social media when they were in 9th grade or 10th grade or some kind of crap like that, and throw it out there just to destroy them. And I thought to myself, this is really getting out of hand.
Yes.
Where we're supposed to hold a kid who's 23, 22 years old accountable for something that they did when they were 9, 10, or 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that trend has gone away. And I didn't see a lot of do you have that same observation?
Yeah, I think
thank God that kind of trolling has gone away.
Every single year of the league, they do sort of a postmortem with all 32 teams, and they say, hey, look, this stuff has got to stop. That we can't be bringing in something that a player did when they were 15, when they were, as you well know, being a news guy yourself, anything a player does, say under the age of 18, particularly if they broke the law for whatever reason, it's supposed to be sealed.
Who did
as a juvenile? Yeah. It's supposed to be sealed as you know that.
Who didn't break the law as a juvenile? I mean, Jesus, I did some stupid shit.
If we could tell stories,
we can't. I think the statute
of what we all did.
I think the statute of limitations ran
breaking the
solid.
law
Fire
is one
off.
thing, but the social media stuff and something that you may have said that was stupid.
And they're outing you though.
Yeah.
During that time period, they're outing you. They're digging up the stuff. Yeah. And then outing you for something and you're a totally different person now.
Right.
Like most males don't fully mature, at least mentally, 25, 27 years old. So
I'm still not there.
Yeah, right? So we're all challenged. But if you're 22, 23.
For the record, he said it. He said it himself.
Yeah. I'm not afraid to admit it. I mean,
it's a lifetime ago from when you were 15. It's just a lifetime ago.
So let me ask you this:
it shouldn't be involved in the process.
You were just talking that you were out at the Colorado spring game, and I had just seen this article, and I cannot remember the kid's name, and I meant to screenshot it so I had it, but he had put a Twitter out that he wasn't able to put out his game film because Dion wasn't allowing him to do that. And I cannot remember the kid's name, but I know you were just out there with Dion watching that spring game. Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge proponent of Deion Sanders being at Colorado. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. And I love his no-nonsense approach.
Those kids are going to benefit.
Hey, look, like the biggest thing that I saw with him was he brought all of the female staff into the room, into the team room, and he said, you will treat every one of these women with respect, just like you would treat them as they were your mother, your grandmother, whoever. I love what he is building. Yeah. But I saw this story that he wasn't allowing, supposedly wasn't allowing this kid to throw his footage because he transferred. So he wasn't getting his footage, to throw film at, other teams. I mean, Dion, I do not, obviously, but everything he's doing, what I've seen, I love watching, the TikTok videos of him in team meetings. I mean, he can
motivate, right?
He commands a room.
Yeah.
Phones are off, hats are off, and you're going to sit here and pay attention. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. But I heard that, and it was kind of shocking to me. And whether it's true, whether it's not, I didn't know if you had any insight, if you had seen any of that, at all or not. But I can't see Dion pushing somebody down just because they wanted to leave. He tells people to leave. He tells them, go enter the portal. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think here is the conflict. And personally, the portal, for a team, you have to share that video. If a player enters the portal, you have to do that. Now, for competitive reasons, you can see why a coach would not want to give up, particularly for practices. But for games, you go ahead and do what you got to do. if it's a player that you do not want to leave, you can see, and if you haven't had the discussion, maybe you don't want to give up that video at the current time because we have yet to have a talk. Because maybe you feel as a player, as a coach, you can talk that player into coming back. So maybe you haven't done it. So there's nuance to that conversation because there were two sides of that story. But eventually, I do know that Deion said, "Hey, any of the players who want to leave, please come and talk to us. After we talk, your film will be made available for those schools."
And there's always more to that story.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, that's the more. That's the more.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a conversation. You're opting to
Yeah.
leave, and that's fine. We're going to figure out why.
It's akin to if you have an employee and you have proprietary information as an employee.
Exactly. Yep.
And you're going to go to another company. Most companies you would sign an NDA, or you would have a period of time where you couldn't go to a competitor because of proprietary information. Well, that doesn't exist in the portal. But you can understand why people want to protect their that what we call intellectual property. Like, okay, wait a minute. So you're going here? Look, okay, let's talk. You would want to at least keep them. You would want to at least make it clear, like, look, we would love if you didn't share X, Y, and Z. That happens in the NFL right now in free agency.
Oh, I'm sure.
If a Bengal was leaving to go to the Cleveland Browns, right? And if Zach Taylor knew that play, he was like, look, sure we can't. You want to have one more phone call? You sure we can't, help you stay here? We really like you. You would want to have another conversation.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this: teams aren't going to share that tape. They're not going to. The tape in the NFL is already shared at a very high level. So teams don't control that.
When you talk about this going on in the NFL,
yeah,
what really can a player share with a coaching staff from another team? That other than in-house stuff, other than personality
that's a
stuff.
Very good question.
Because what you're doing on the field is every move is recorded. You don't have access to the video, I guess, that they should have practice.
Calls. You can share the calls. When you hear this is what it means. When you hear this is what it means.
Yeah, but that can change overnight, though, can it? Or
teams, you'd be surprised. So you got to. It's like an army, right? It's like this isn't like a tennis player where you're just one player that I need to instruct.
Yeah,
I've got to instruct multiple players. So if one player leaves, they're not going to change everything.
Yeah.
It's just not going to do that. I'll give you an example. You remember when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl? John Gruden left the Raiders, went to Tampa Bay. You had 5 interceptions. 3 of them returned for touchdowns for Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense.
Oh, that's right.
They knew every call, every check.
Completely
it was
forgot.
checkmate.
Until you brought that up.
Rich Gannis like, what? Coach, are you kidding me? Well, I'm thinking, no, he's not kidding. It's competitive balance. He built what you do. He knows what you do. If anyone who has who is the code breaker would be the coach if he goes to the other team, let alone a player, right? So no, it doesn't change because it would have to change for not just Rich, but for everyone.
For everybody.
Sure.
You're starting from square one.
Why do you think the Patriots recorded people? Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that.
Video game. you don't have to. I'll say it.
I know. I'm just having
you
fun.
don't have to say it.
So, Sully, I just want to throw one thing out. Somebody, who is it? Jim Duff. Hockey. It's hockey season. We're talking about football right now. We just finished up the draft, the NFL draft. Hockey, ice is only good for drinks. Nobody gives 2 shits in Cincinnati about hockey other than our beloved Cyclones, who are the minor league team going for another cup.
Yeah, baby.
But aside from that, I just want to throw that out there. And Solomon, I do have a question. What was your biggest surprise of the draft? I mean, if you were just kind of driving around Sunday or maybe even Saturday night finishing up dinner, because I know they started at noon, and you're thinking, God, I cannot, because I think a lot when I drive a lot.
Yeah.
What the hell were they thinking? Or that is an odd pick, but that is one hell of a pick. Did anything resonate like that?
Well, yeah, there was a lot swirling around. Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, cuff calf product,
Yep.
right? Local kid falling out of the first round.
Yeah.
I didn't see
This is Baby Gronk.
Yeah.
And that's the nickname given, right? I didn't see that happening. Like, no. And I thought, no way he makes it to the Bengals. And then I'm thinking, oh, Bengals.
Oh, shit, he might make it to the Bengals.
Like, and then he not only made it, but they passed as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, they took the D.
So I was really curious. And so I began to call around. I did not talk with the Bengals about Michael Mayer, but I began to call around with some of the scouts, some of the people that I know. I was like, what was going on? Didn't this guy have a first round grade? And it was like, look. And and then, you go and you watch the tape, and I love Michael Mayer. I just think, to me, heart matters most. Toughness matters most. This is football, right? And look, I think teams got it wrong. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be a great NFL player. But people talked about the explosiveness and the speed and those things that weren't there. And you can look at the tape and you can say, okay, I can see why that's questioned. And I just remember talking to one coach, and they talk about there are certain things you can't teach a player in any sport. And then there are certain things that we can, like we could teach you to get better catching the ball in traffic. We can teach you better at your release off the line.
Let some of the air out of the ball that'll land softly. Sorry, I'm still kicking on that New England.
I know, right? But we can't teach you to run faster.
Yeah.
We can't teach you to be more explosive. We can't, like when you get here, it's a professional league, like, right? So if you're a lawyer and you're in court, the judge is saying school's out. You either know the protocols for what occurs in court, or you're out of there. Am I right or wrong?
Correct.
If you don't know, if you can't function in here, I don't have time to teach you.
Yeah, as a doctor, you should be able to put an IB in.
That's exactly right. If you can't, so there are certain things that are like, no, and so they move on. Now, again, I don't think his speed or 4.6 right in that area. Think about some of the great tight ends that came out of Notre Dame. I played against a guy by the name of Mark Bavaro. Oh, I mean, this dude, I remember playing against him in college and in the NFL. I was like, this dude is inhuman.
Yeah.
It's not him. But even if you go back, Dave Casper, I mean, these guys, they had so many great tight ends, I think, and he broke all their records. So I still think I wish we would have taken him, but I like the guys that we went with.
It's such a great position.
Them.
I mean, tight end is like the guy that doesn't fit physically anywhere else except that position.
Type pair of jeans, isn't that what you said the other day?
That's not everything. What I said. They have to do everything.
Yeah, you got to block.
They got to block. They've got to catch. They've got to run. They've got to play special teams. Like they're on red zone. They're on the goal line. They are on kickoff. Like they're everywhere. They carry and Bill Belichick told me this. I remember talking with, they carry maybe the largest burden of responsibility for what football teams need to do on a down-to-down basis than any other position in football. And I tend to agree.
You know who I liked? Eifert.
Yeah, Tyler
and
Eifert.
I love Andy
He was a
Dalton.
Notre Dame guy, by the way.
I love Andy Dalton too, but
Eifert,
people call him a porcelain doll. I think he just got strung up, jumping up for the ball, and he got laid out all the time across the middle, and that's going to shorten your longevity in the league.
Didn't he break his foot like in a Pro Bowl?
Yeah, it was, and it was.
I mean, the first year was
shit
his elbow.
You shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
in a Pro Bowl.
In a Pro Bowl,
and that's why they're.
But anybody
like
tell you
now.
break a foot, like that's the one area where you if you break your foot or break your back.
Well, I mean, that horrific injury he had with the ankle, where his ankle got rolled up on, that was during a regular season game.
That's
I mean, that was.
Right.
I thought he was going to be done after that because that
he came back from it, right?
Like his third serious injury.
Yeah,
I remember watching his first game as a Bengal. He was playing at the Browns, and I was watching the game with our doctor buddy, who's a regular here at the. By the way, I didn't say we're at the Varsity Sports Bar and Grill,
8112 Beachmont Avenue.
But I was watching the game with him, and he saw him go down, and his elbow got all, cattywampus, and he called the injury right there. He said, "Oh, he's done for the season," and he was. I mean, Eifert. I hear it was when he was on the Bengals, he was one of the best golfers the Bengals had. But he just couldn't stay hurt. Did he get hurt last year? He's Carolina now, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know if he got hurt last year.
I really enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah.
I watched him beat some of the best safeties this game has put on the field. Remember the Legion of Boom? They came in here against Seattle. And Cam Chancellor, I have all the respect for. He and Earl Thomas to say he took him behind the woodshed. I mean, he was phenomenal on that day.
Yeah.
And so he should be given credit for that. I just thought he was really excellent. Listen, this game here for every single player is not about if you get hurt, it's about when you get hurt.
It's exactly right.
100%
shit.
injury adverse.
You know the rules. You've been on before. You can say you said it twice.
What did I say?
100%.
100%. Thanks.
Say 100%. You got to take a drink.
It's the rules.
I'll say it more.
All right.
You can say it as many times as you
We'll
want.
have to get a designated waitress back here.
Now with Eifert, I mean, he had a ton of heart.
Yeah.
I agree with Rob's statement, though. He was getting thrown out, having to extend out and getting put in positions that he probably shouldn't. Any other team, any other quarterback may not have put him in those spots to get the injuries that he had.
Well, it's like Palmer in his last years, and then Dalton comes in. The line wasn't what it used to be, and those guys were rushed. And Burrow, his first season, what was his release time? It was so short. I think it was a record for the NFL.
Football's like a loaded hand grenade. The longer you hold it, the bad things happen.
And I like speaking of other
that analogy.
I like that one.
Speaking of other players that get injured, broken neck, Pollock. I love Pollock. DE.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. All right, I think we've got all the preliminary stuff out of the way. We'll start breaking down the Bengals draft, but before we do, we want to say thanks to our sponsor, and one of our great sponsors is Kerry Wolfangle of Comey and Shepherd Realtors. When it is time to buy, sell, move in, move out, well, there's one name you need to know around Cincinnati or really anywhere around the world, and of course, that is our good friend Kerry Wolfangle. Realtors, they know the market and all that other stuff, but for Kerry, it's a lot more than that. You talk about honesty, you talk about trust, you talk about building a relationship. That is what she does. And she has been recognized with many of the highest awards in the business. And she is the only real estate agent that we recommend here on the One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. Give Kerry a call, 513-265-3125, or email kwolfangle@comey.com. Your road home starts at Wolfangle.
Can I fire a question off real quick, Dan?
Please do.
What are your thoughts on the ACC the past year? I know we picked up the DE there. I'm just curious on the ACC. I mean, I watch a lot of college football.
When you're an SEC guy.
Yeah, it's not the SEC. No other conference is. But it's still good football players.
Is it as good as it was, though, when Lawrence was in? I think it – my opinion is it's died off in the past year or two since he went to Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no doubt. I think if you look at the SEC, it looms so large. And now you've got other schools that are transferring it. Oklahoma's coming in, right? Look, if you're the Pac-12, if you're the Big Ten, I still think those players are good football players. Mm-hmm. The SEC is there's a lot baked into that because you're playing against great competition, right? But I think ACC plays good football. I think Clemson still plays good football. I think other schools in the ACC still play good football. You have good football players coming from programs that you haven't heard of. North Dakota State. My whole thing is, don't tell me where you play. Tell me how you play.
I think I bet on North Dakota State.
I'm pretty sure you bet on it.
That's how, and it's great to play against great competition because it does fuel confidence.
Makes you better.
Malcolm Gladwell did a study on this, and he talked about: would you rather be a C student at Harvard or an A student, say, pick a state school,
Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State. And so he talked about, most people say I'd rather go to Harvard. Right? You'd rather play against the best and be mediocre playing against the best. He says no. If you're successful, success breeds more success. Excellence breed more excellence. So it doesn't matter where your excellence occurs as long as it's excellence. And that's what we should be promoting above the environment where the performance occurred. Now, that was free. I'm charging the next time I give something that good.
All right, well, let's talk about Miles Murphy. First pick for the Bengals. Picked him at number 28 out of Clemson. And the analysis that I heard about that pick was that they got really good value there because this guy was ranked in some pre-draft rankings as high as the 12th best athlete in the draft. And for the Bengals to get him at number 28, pretty good pick for them. What say you?
Talked to Duke Tobin about that just today. He said they were shocked that he was even still there. Should not have been there. But I think with the question, the ACC, his production, I think PFF had him ranked second in total pressures within the ACC. I do think there is a discount. It's like if you play in the Pac-12, right? It's like there are people who like, you know, if you go to a Ivy League school, then that there's no doubt. I've talked to scouts, I've talked to coaches. This is a guy that people really love. He ran a 4.51 at the scouting combine. A defensive end. This guy's like 6'5", 268.
Yeah.
He's 270, ran a 4. You know what I ran at the combine? 4.5 flat. This guy ran a 4.51.
4.51, yeah. It's pretty good speed.
Come on now. Come on.
And you're a cornerback.
Yeah, I was a corner coming back. I'm like,
it takes me 4.5 days to get to my mailbox and back.
Look, so the overarching theme for this year's draft for the Bengals, they added a lot of speed at every single position.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you can get a guy this big that runs this fast, now he does need to establish a secondary move. He's a primary singular move guy. But so was Myles Garrett when he first came out.
Well,
but if it works for you, why would you work on anything else? He's got to find out in the NFL that won't work for him. And now he'll have to establish a secondary and maybe even a third move.
One thing is, if I ever ran a 4.5, there's going to be a shit ton of deputies behind me. There's going to be a canine involved, and I'm looking for water.
Big dogs. Big dogs are a bear.
Secondly, Chase Brown. I mean,
yeah,
I love that pick in the 5th round. Yeah. I watched him play some of the highlights and some of the other stuff. I've watched a couple of games with him. His hands are actually pretty damn good for a running back.
Very good.
He needs to learn how to block.
He reminds me me personally, because I was watching the highlights today, just gearing up of Gio Bernard.
I was thinking the same thing with Gio.
Yeah. So think about
congratulations on retirement too.
Yes, congratulations.
He's 5'9", 200 plus pounds. And I think I had tweeted out that night when he was drafted, I said, look, this guy is not here to replace Joe Mixon. Think of him as an Austin Eckler.
Yes.
That's what he gives you. And we have not had that within that type of player with that skill set since Joe Burrow has joined the team. Think about if Gio would have been on the team with Joe Burrow.
But you don't.
Oh yeah.
But you don't think we had that with Samaje Perine?
No, the guy's 5'9".
But
let me finish.
Okay,
because you asked the question.
Oh, it sounds like Marty with you.
I love it though.
No, the guy runs a 4.43. Perine's a much bigger back. He's a power back. He's a first down, second down guy who could also block. This guy is Austin Eckler. Is Perine Austin Eckler? I'll give you this. Austin Eckler had 38 touchdowns over the last 2 years, 12 more than any other running back in the entire NFL.
I see where you're going now. I'm picking up what you're putting down
now.
So
we're talking about a different prototype, right?
Yes.
A guy that in a high-powered passing offense with 3 wide receivers, whether it's Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, to be able to put a running back there now that can make people miss. This guy's a home run hitter. 1,800 yards from scrimmage at Illinois this past year. I think it ranked top 5 in the country. So he's a small guy, but he's an energetic, gives us more speed on offense, and that's something we've been missing. We don't have a back, or haven't had one since Gio Bernard.
No, and I agree with that. And I guess my question when I threw it in there is giving Mixon backup to where like Samaje would give him backup, but he would pound through. So to your point with Brown coming through, being squirrely, he's got hands. No, I see exactly what you're saying.
I think everyone would love to have Samaje P. Ryan back.
Yeah,
I mean he was a 3-down back.
He lit a fire under Mixon's
ass. He was different because he could do the things Mixon could do, but he can also do a couple of things Mixon could not do. I thought he was better in pass protection, right? People don't understand he still holds the rushing record in a single game at University of Oklahoma.
Yeah,
like still to this day. And there's some great running backs
with his teammate on his team, Joe Mixon.
Yeah. So, but this guy can do things that P. Ryan couldn't.
Yeah, no,
he brings
I agree
more
with that.
speed, more suddenness. Imagine with Joe Burrow and the receivers that they have, right? To be able to go up tempo at times and to have a different, what we call change of pace kind of guy who not only is just a pass catcher, he can run it. He had over 1,600 yards rushing at Illinois. He played in the Big Ten. So I'm just giving him credit and they got him in the 5th round. I'm giving him credit for what he does. He ran on the 4x100 team in high school. The guy's a track star, hard-working guy. He was the captain of the team there. And so he's a real leader. And I think people are going to find out that he brings more juice to the offense than what we had before.
Yeah. And what's good too is it reminds me of Gio, where he can hide behind the offensive line, and you can do a design draw with him.
There you go.
Because everybody's going to be worried about our assets on the wide receiver, tight end, et cetera. And you just flick it to Chase, and bam, nobody knows where he is until he hits a pocket and goes. And he's fast as shit.
Yeah, it's a great comparison. A younger Giovanni Bernard.
Yep.
And remember Giovanni Bernard was so good. I remember I was in production meetings because calling games for CBS, and I'm talking to Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. They were like, oh, my God. They were trying to draft another Gio. They were trying to go out and find – because that's how I'm telling you, this guy really just put the fear of God in opponents because he was so hard to deal with within the context of offense that has really good receivers. You have good receivers and then a running back like that who's also a runner and a receiver. Yep. He's operating against a light box defensively, and he's operating in space. So he can make you miss and hit home runs.
What did he run, a 4.4, 4.3?
He ran 4.4 in the 40.
Oh, shit. That's quick as shit. Because you can do a fake draw even with him. And when the wide receivers are pulling off the linebackers, you dump it to him over across the line. He's gone. Or a play action.
I don't want to oversell it. He's a weapon.
Yes.
No, definitely a weapon.
That one caught my eye when I was watching 5th round. I'm like, Chase Brown. I was like, oh shit.
And I really don't think that as we look at what he brings, I don't think we should look at it like a replacement for Joe Mixon, because I think Joe brings things to the table that Chase Brown doesn't, and Chase Brown, there are some things that he can't do that Joe does, and there are some things that he can't do that Chase Brown does, and that's why I think it's very smart of Duke Tobin. They're trying to build a complete backfield and have multiple people.
Yes, you get complement
the assets.
They complement each other very well.
3rd and 1, Mixon, if you're going to run the damn ball, or put Mixon in as a decoy if you're going to throw it. But nonetheless, I Chase Brown, I like him when it's 1st or 2nd, but 3rd and short, put the workhorse in.
Now, say what happened last year. Say if Joe was down for maybe 3-4 games. You know who's going to get those tough carries on short yardage goal line? It's going to be the other guys. You know, it won't be Chase Brown. Chase Brown will continue to stay in his role, but those other guys who weren't able to get on the field, because that's when P. Ryan would come in,
right?
Those guys can now get into the game
and start
Chris
Evans,
Travion Williams,
Williams.
Yeah. As long as Zach doesn't give me another stroke or a coronary with Joe Burrow running a quarterback sneak. That scares the shit out of me every time he's going for short. I'm like, please get up.
On 4th and 1?
Anything.
On 4th and 1, quarterback sneaks are the most successful play you can ever. Why would you turn around, hand it to a guy who's standing way back there, and now turn it into 4th and 8?
I know. I'm
Because
just
you're giving him the ball 8
We're
yards
just we're just apprehensive
Yeah.
because whenever Joe hits
He's
the ground,
not a-
we're like, get up, make sure you.
Do you
gets
guys
up.
know who Joe Burrow is?
yes.
Clearly you
He's
don't.
a tough son of a bitch.
Dan, act like he's a China doll.
He is a tough son of a
Like,
bitch, but it's
this-
scary when his
You know what
first
his favorite-
when
you know
his
what his
first
favorite
season he
sport
goes
is?
out.
You know what his favorite sport is?
Oh shit.
Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
basketball.
No,
Rugby.
UFC fighting.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I did
I
see
didn't
him
know.
down there. We
Hey,
saw
bro,
that pic.
I'm gonna tell you. You
See, this is
Listen,
why we bring you on.
don't underestimate the toughness of this.
What
Oh
do you-
no, he's
No,
tough.
I
as
would
shit.
I would never
It's
do
just
When have
scary
you
for
seen
a
a
fan.
player get hurt on 4th and 1 on a quarterback sneak?
I don't know.
Come on, guys.
What's
Come
It's
Oh,
just
come
the
on, man.
first. It's his first
You're
year
talking-
that he
you're
was in.
talking to
on.
guys-
All right, look.
You're talking to guys.
We're
who-
going to have to man up at this table.
You're
here,
talking to
'cause I'm
guys
sorry.
who
I
grew
can't
up
take
in Cincinnati.
Sully,
We've been snake bit our whole lives.
4th and 1.
I get out of
quarterback
bed at
sneak.
7 in the morning on the weekend.
We
and
remember
I'm
Tim
like,
Crumry.
oh,
we
shit.
remember Kenyon Martin. We remember that kind of stuff.
I know.
So I mean,
but
you know, those are the kind of
it's
things
a man's
that
game.
Oh no, he is
You don't
he is
start
tough
your
as nails.
day. You don't start your day or your plan, whatever it is you're trying to do, out of fear.
No, I'm not.
I don't want
saying
him
that.
going on 4th and 1.
unless you're
Might get hurt.
unless you've been married
That's
for a
what I
long
heard.
time.
I'm just telling you, that's what I heard.
No,
I'm not saying
no,
who
I agree.
said
You
it,
can't do
but
that.
that's what I heard. We can't.
All right.
We gotta be. We got.
let me
Come on, guys. I
rephrase.
need some guys. I need some guys at this table right now.
Pound that
Say.
motherfucker. Pound it down.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, I never, ever question the toughness of a firefighter. Ever.
Boom.
So
There you go.
I'm
Boom.
with you.
All
But
right.
you say that
Oh,
one
he
more
can-
time, we're gonna write him up, right? We're gonna.
You're on sanctions. You're on sanctions.
So a guy I don't know a lot about is DJ Turner,
Yeah.
the second from Michigan, cornerback, and he was the Bengals' second round pick. What do you know about DJ Turner?
Flat out speed, flat out 4.2 guy. But this isn't a guy who can just run. It's not because he's a track guy. He's a true football player. Operates, got great technician in terms of his man-to-man press, man-to-man coverage skills. From zone, he can operate from off. He's got very good poise when the ball is arriving, doesn't panic. They can play him as a true outside corner. This is a guy that can develop into what they hope to be a really phenomenal corner. Now, he's very light. He's
The
like
single
a
coverage
1.7.
guy? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
You expect to see him on the field as a rookie?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's going to play. Oh, no, he's going to play. First of all, second round pick. You're going to play. High draft pick. And that kind of speed. He was one of the fastest defensive backs at the scouting combine. 4.26. That's off the
Yeah.
charts.
That's what one of the
fast.
notes I'm looking at here talked about his combine performance.
Yes. Yes.
Did a really good number for his
But the
stock. His
but the
stock went up.
tape matches it, like his performance on the field. So these are the kind of players that look when you're playing press man to man, guy get a step on you, the ability to recover, the ability to get back in phase and be able to make plays on the ball. He doesn't panic. Scott, that kind of speed breeds confidence, and that position requires that you have confidence. So he went to the right school. Michigan does a really good job. They coach really well. They coach really well in the secondary. And so technique and fundamentals are very important. This guy brings that to the table.
Did he play 4 years at Michigan?
He did.
Did he?
Yeah,
Okay.
he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. He's phenomenal. He redshirted a year and then he played his 4 years. Yeah.
I
Really good.
I love the quarterback, and we had a couple of bets. The quarterback picks, I mean, 1 and 2 were pretty obvious. Some flip flop, but I like Anthony Richardson. Not just because
Yeah.
I'm a Gator fan, but nonetheless with Indy. I think he's got a hell of an arm. I watched him play when I think he was a redshirt freshman or sophomore down in Florida in Gainesville. I went down to a game. He needs to not run. He's got one hell of an arm and accuracy, and he's a big
Yeah.
kid. Anthony, if you're listening, which you're probably not, don't run. Stay in the pocket.
Well, look, if you talk to Steve Young, he would tell them all only run to throw.
Yeah.
So you look, if they're chasing you, don't just stand there. You got to run. You got to escape, but escape with a plan, right?
Yeah.
So to buy more time, we call it extending the play.
Mhm.
But to your point, we're starting to turn some of these quarterbacks into running backs.
I know.
And
what are your thoughts on that?
I love the fact that it's about the development of the player and how you grow them and get them comfortable being on the field, get them comfortable to making plays, get them being productive sooner rather than later. You only get better by playing. But you also have like Steve Young, and that's why I really defer to him. He's a bright guy. I think he was one of the best quarterbacks I had ever seen. And he was primarily a runner. And he grew into becoming a passer. And he knew that he had to evolve in that way. And he ultimately did. And became a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But he talks about it. The more you run, now, I played defense in the NFL, and I love to tell people this. We come with bad intentions.
Yep.
If we catch you, we ain't trying to lay you down and have you nap on a pillow.
It's not taking down that first girlfriend in bed, man. It's going to be a little harder.
If we get our hands on you now, we're trying to drive you into the ground, and that's where quarterbacks need to understand. To your point, get down.
Yeah, and it makes me nervous. I look at him, and I know the kid's got a long future. He has one of the greatest arms, and he's accurate as shit. Run to get more time, but don't run down the field with an eye towards the end zone. And I'm going to mull over a couple of linebackers and shit on the way. I mean, it scares me because of Cam and Lamar. I mean, constantly hurt and shit.
Think about Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills. He's hurdled.
Yeah.
He's run over guys. His day is coming. It's only a number. It's like a lottery. It's coming.
It's like you
just
said,
like with Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
Newton. I would do production meetings. I'm calling Carolina Panthers game. This guy walks into the room and was like, "Where's the quarterback?" Because it ain't you. This guy,
he's the center.
He's 6'6", 250, and can run like the wind. I mean, if you were going to carve one out of granite, it'd be Cam Newton. But even he wore down, right?
Sure.
Over time,
yeah.
The hits keep coming. You're taking on a fresh 11 defenders each and every week, year after year. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. Steve Young, he said it. You've got to learn to survive. You run to throw. You don't run to just run. Sooner or later, that's going to catch up with
Well, look how quickly it caught up to RG3. I mean,
by the end of his rookie year, it was over.
Oh, my God.
I mean, Michael Vick was one that could get away with it to a point to where he was taking big hits. He was making big plays, and big gains in games.
Was he the reason for the slide rule, like the feet versus head first? Because I remember he would get down towards the latter part of his career.
Well, I would say he aged out. So what do we? You don't, and I think it was Rich Gannon who said it. You don't see any aging running quarterbacks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't run.
All the guys who are playing until they're 40 are throwers.
Yeah, they're not. They're pocket passers.
Yeah. So
Brady isn't
Michael
doing the
Vick,
opposite.
who was a great runner, never got hurt like what we're describing,
right?
Because he was so quick. But after a while, he never really truly evolved as that true pocket passer. So he became less effective as both a passer and a runner.
Right.
And so
everything caught up to him at the same time.
But had he evolved, even though his running ability, as you begin to age, none of us can run at 40 like we could when we were 20.
Well, let's not go.
Well, maybe one of you guys can.
You can. You can. I can't.
No. But
so far,
aged out.
Father Time's undefeated.
Undefeated. That's right, Dave.
I tell you, in my 20s, you hear cops. I could run pretty damn quick.
You hit a fence over the fence like that, right?
Yeah, I think I run like a goddamn gazelle if I've got a reason behind me.
There you go.
Solomon, I think the Bengals got a really good pick in their third round. Jordan Battle out of Alabama.
I love that.
And this is a guy I believe is team captain.
Yeah.
I think the Bengals were surprised that he was still there. I'm looking at a bunch of A grades on this guy, and as I look at him, here in Cincinnati, we have great memories of your good buddy David Fulrock, and this guy looks like a David Fulcher type safety to me.
I would say he's different. He's a different kind of player. He's not nearly as big.
I'm just saying the body kind of looks that way.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like your prototypical safety.
He's more athletic. He's a guy. I mean, the safeties today, and that's why we don't see many safeties like David Fulcher, right, playing in the NFL today. 230 pounds.
Yeah. He was supposed to be a line. Everyone thought he was a linebacker,
and he was by the end of his career when he went to the Raiders. But no, Battle's going to be right in the 200 range, not 230. More cerebral.
He looks bigger. I'm looking at this picture. I mean, he looks.
But what does the weight say? Don't go by look.
Yeah,
because he's got on shoulder pads.
I know, but I'm just looking at the.
They say 209.
See,
he looks bigger than that.
Yeah, 209. Yeah. Fulcher played around 230.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that anyone who knows Nick Saban, I got to know him really well. He was coaching in Miami, and I was doing a lot of his games, spent a lot of time with him. One of the brightest coaches you'll ever meet. And very engaging. I know a lot of people think it's a little bit gruff. I just found him to be so old school. He's the kind of coach I love. It's like it's the kind of guy I want to hang out with.
It's what you knew, though.
And, it's the kind of coach I had in high school, and it's what I grew up with. And it was phenomenal. I mean, if you have the opportunity, if you're a defensive back, because that's how he came up, coaching defensive backs. It was actually Steve Belichick, Bill Belichick's father, who discovered Nick as this potential coach, ended up hiring him as a coach, and he grew up under Steve Belichick, and that's how he got to become very close with Bill Belichick. They end up, growing as in the coaching world together, but they tend to see things very similarly from the back end to the front of the defense. They both started out as defensive back coaches, and like Dick LeBeau, they want to build it from the back to the front. And so they require the guys who play on the back end to be great thinkers, to be great communicators, to carry a huge burden of responsibility. And as Dick LeBeau used to say, if we screw things up in the back end in the secondary, we don't get second chances. The official is usually standing in the end zone, holding up both arms, signaling a touchdown. So if the defensive end screws up, somebody else can cover for you and make a tackle.
That's a signal.
The line, if we screw up back there, and who else said that? Lou Anaromo. The Bengals, Lou Anaromo and I, we talked. He says the same thing. He gets it. So you better be good.
Learning from Dick LeBeau is a pretty good way to go.
That's right. Yeah. And you better be able to communicate. That's who Jordan Battle is. And that's who Jesse Bates was. Jesse Bates brought that extra special because he had great ball skills. And so when you have ball skills, you come away with a lot of picks. And so that's like icing on the cake. But those fundamental foundational traits that I just mentioned, that's what you have in Jordan Battle.
Yeah, I kind of like him. And I like the whole philosophy that the Bengals have now, that they want to draft guys who in college were team captains, guys who were team leaders, guys who excelled academically, guys that came from winning programs, not just in college, but in high school as well.
That's
because they wanted. Do you think something like that makes a difference?
Oh, I know it makes a difference.
Across the board?
Oh, it makes a difference. There's no – look, college football can be very tough. If you were losing, now what happens is your motives change because you become more of a person who's playing for your own individual motives. If you went through years of losing, it can beat you down. Losing could do that, even in this league. Now you're not playing for team goals, you're playing for individual goals.
I'm going to make another reference to marriage there, Solomon.
Yeah, exactly. Because you feel like, well, why am I doing this? And you start to become more singular in your focus. But so to be able to draft players who understood that, look, I got to give up my own individual goals for the betterment of the team goals and winning, and they've succeeded at it. Now it's cemented. It's like when you pour cement, right? You're sitting there shaping it. But once it hardens, it hardens. You got what you got.
Right.
That's how players who come into our league. When we draft them, it is what it is. Don't think you're getting ready to change them. Mm-hmm. I think it was Paul Brown used to say, a tiger don't change its stripes. He's still a tiger. Right? So guys who understood, give up my – look, I want to go to the NFL, but, man, look, the best way to get there is winning. The best way to get there, maybe I don't catch as many balls as a wide receiver, but I got to do some other things. But if we win everyone gets what they want.
Everyone's
gets
looking.
to accomplish
Everyone's
their goals.
looking at you.
Absolutely. And so you talk about the prototype of what Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, what they've been able to build. This is why I think they do such a great job of drafting. And I think the coaching staff that they have do a good job of developing those players. And that's why you look at all the things you just named next to these players, some of the character traits. That's why even if you look around the NFL, they're excited about who the Bengals were able to draft. They even deem these to be really good picks.
Yeah. I mean, they were showing, everything that I looked at was A- to A on this draft, which and across CBS Sports, NFL Network, a couple different, it was A to A-. And looking at it, and some of these players I didn't know, full disclosure, but as I started looking into them, like I'm excited to see what this Charlie Jones does. This kid seems excited.
Yeah.
As excited can be coming out of Purdue, the wide receiver coming out of Purdue.
First of all, any of the players, I could tell you right now, NFL scouts and coaches get excited when they see a player coming out of Iowa. Kurt Ferentz is one of the really great coaches in college football. They don't win a lot of Big Ten championships, but they made some real tough. Remember Kevin Zeitler?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Iowa guy. And, any of these offensive linemen, I'm telling you, they just coach so well. They're so good. Micah Hyde was one of those players, Bob Sanders. These players, I'm telling you, they come from the right kind of program. And that's where Charlie Jones was. Then he went to Purdue. Right. And, the quarterback, I think, was drafted by the Raiders a little bit later. O'Connell is his name. The kid can sling it. But this kid, Charlie Jones, also runs a 4.43. Yeah, he's just as fast as Chase Brown.
He is fast as shit.
And he's a slot receiver. Unfortunately, one day we're going to probably end up having to play some games without Tyler Boyd. I don't look forward to that day.
Right.
But if that day were to come and Charlie Jones was our guy inserted into the slot, I'd feel pretty good about it. So,
and a kick returner as well.
Absolutely. Oh, you got to play special teams.
Right.
When they draft these guys, they tell them, like, if you're not the first round guy, even some of those guys, you got to play special teams. Darren Simmons is going to come visit you. That's all you. There are no
in the middle of the night.
There are no sacred cows now. You're going to have to show your manhood. Look,
guys in the NFL frown on playing special teams? I'll
give you a story.
I got to do another punt
I don't
coverage.
talk a lot about my time playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoyed it because Coach Cowher made it clear.
It's a madman.
To every wide receiver, you're running down on kickoff. And if you wasn't man enough to run down on kickoff, you were not on the team.
How about that?
Yancey Thigpen did it. There was a guy by the name of Hines Ward.
May or may not know.
He became the baddest dude running down on kickoff, and he was a wide receiver.
Well, some guys have the mindset they love that.
But that is what bred in the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
If the littlest guy is the baddest dude, then how can the big guy not be? Right? That's that kind of toughness and it's inbred. So by the time, I remember Coach Gower used to say, because he was a special teams coach and now he's the head coach. And so he's in the meeting. He said, look, I don't care if you're not catching 100 balls a year, you're running down on kickoff.
I love it.
And I'm going to tell you right now, before you catch 100 balls a year, you will be running down on kickoffs. So, and I loved it. I was like, that's what I'm talking about, coach. Make everybody in here man up. I don't care what position you play. You got to man up. Like it was known.
Oh, that's
awesome. To be a Steeler,
awesome.
man, every
Did he say Wilcots here on kickoffs?
Well, he already knew. I remember my very first practice. I showed up. He put me in this one drill. I was the up back on punt team. The center can't block anybody on the punt because he got his head between his legs.
Yeah, right. You're looking back.
So
there.
Donald Evans, nose tackle, lined up over the center. I'm the up back in that A gap. That means I do the count. I got to take him.
Yeah.
But he's like maybe 4 yards away, and he's snorting like a bull.
It's a big guy too.
So I look over, I say, "Oh, you're setting me up, Coach Coward. Like you set, all right." Ball. He snaps the ball. He comes fire. Bam! Hit him right in the face. Face mask to face mask. Coach Coward says, "Okay, we got our guy. Next drill." But listen, it's okay.
We got our guy.
It's okay. I get it.
Did you walk away from that drill thing? I probably shouldn't have performed that well.
I played on a punt team every single year from my freshman year through my senior year at the University of Colorado. We had the number 1 punt team in the country.
How about that?
And it was a source of pride. Now, here's the deal. Bill McCartney, who was our coach, who came from Michigan, who had played for Bo. And I talked to all my Michigan friends. They, Bo used to give us the same speech. The punt team is the number 1 team on the team. It's the most important part of the team. And I'm like, get the heck. I've heard those speeches. And so
come on, you didn't believe every word of it?
I do know this. We went from losing to winning. Yeah. So of course I bought into it.
Hell yeah, man.
You know, so I was an up back on the punt team every year in college, and only the starters were on the punt team when I was in college. If you weren't a starter, you weren't on the punt team. He made it a source of pride.
That's cool.
So Bill Coward didn't know that when he said, "Get in there and I want you right here," he was sending me home.
That was a shit you were already used to.
Like, Coach, you already know. You set me up to win here. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was teaching at the broadcasting school. I would tell those young people, and you do you remember you were in my class?
I do, yeah.
And I would tell them, I would say, it doesn't matter what story you're on. Whatever story you're on that day is the most important story.
Own it.
Because you're covering that story, and that's the way you have to approach it.
Exactly.
You might be doing a story about a fucking cat show or something like that, but you can't go out there and flush that down. Right. You got to polish that dirt, man.
You got to own it. Yeah. You got to own it.
Did you get your Dan Carroll Award?
No,
they didn't have it. They didn't have it back then.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what. A true story though.
It's probably posthumously.
I was teaching classes back then, and Solomon Wilcots comes walking into the class. And I'm thinking, oh man, okay, here's this guy, NFL. He's just gonna mail it in, going through the motions.
Here comes this guy.
He's gonna walk out of here, and he's gonna walk into a fat 6-figure job at the network, some crap like that.
70.
But I'll tell you what, I don't remember what the assignment was, but there was an assignment that day, and then the next day we critiqued all the assignments, and I remember. The one that you did was the best one in that class. And I told all the kids in that class that day, I said, if you want to know how to do this, I said, look at what Solomon did. And that's how you do it.
I do recall.
Because you brought it.
Yeah.
You brought it. And you came and you did what you had to do because you knew where you wanted to go.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, in the broadcasting school, it may not have been the best facilities, but you knocked it out of the park, man.
I love the fact that he just said
I
the other
appreciate
kids.
that. I really
was
appreciate
everybody.
And that's what I loved about it. That's what I loved about Solly from the very first time I met him.
Thank you. I appreciate
and
it.
He did not come in there half-stepping.
Solomon's been a guest here multiple times, so he understands that we're going to also give him a bunch of shit.
You said kids.
No,
well, they were kids.
They were. No, it was.
Oh, okay.
I was
going to say
older.
You were a kid.
I was an adult.
Yeah.
Like I had already played in the NFL. My career was over, and these were young kids who, instead of going to college, they were going to take this course. Yeah. Some of them had been to college, maybe a few years out of high school, but no, the
majority of people in that class were 22, 23,
Absolutely.
24 years
really?
old.
Yeah.
And
I was significantly
mid-30s
older
at that time. Yeah,
I was late 20s.
Late 20s.
I was in late 20s. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Dan is molding young minds.
Dan's
that
80.
is petrifying to me.
That was a very successful class.
Dan was 80 at the time.
We give Dan grief, but we love Dan.
I do have one other question.
We know he's good at what he does.
I watched this kid play. Obviously AAC quarterback, Houston, Clayton Tune. Did you watch his post draft conference?
Who was this again?
Clayton Tune, the quarterback for Houston.
I didn't get to see. I've heard of him. I haven't seen any of his tape.
UC and all that other shit, but
I've heard really great things. This guy's got like folklore around him. So
he comes
maybe
out.
You can enlighten me.
He came out and he's like, I'm the best quarterback in the draft. I'm a natural leader. people follow me, this and that. And I'm not discounting the kid. The kid was good at Houston his last season. I believe they were 8-5, made it to a bowl game. I believe it might have been a Liberty Bowl.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, is that what you're looking for in a quarterback, or do you think that's too much arrogance? You're a first year that just got in. You weren't number one overall. Even number one, I don't think should be walking into a team of veterans like that with that saying.
I talked to just recently on our Bleave in Bengals podcast. I interviewed Carson Palmer, and I asked him about
great interview. By the way.
That very thing. It's like you want this confidence, you want this swagger. There's a lot of pressure on these quarterbacks when they come into our league, particularly if you're taking over number one overall, as Carson was. And he said, "Look, you want, if you're a quarterback in this league, you want that guy to believe he is the guy. You want him to believe he has to believe he's a difference maker." He said, "Now it's a slippery slope," and I think he used Johnny Manziel as an example of what not to do.
I can see that analogy.
So I'm going to use maybe two different examples of two quarterbacks who were taken first overall recently and how they handled it. And they both went to two teams that were, obviously, if you're the first overall pick, you're not that great.
Yeah.
2018, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's got all the endorsements. He's doing the insurance commercials. He's when he steps to the podium.
Which I enjoyed those commercials. They were great. Pretty good commercials.
Progressive, yeah.
Good commercials.
And so, he's also he would just, there was things that I was like, that's not good. That's not good. I just remember, wasn't alarming. He would we didn't have the best game plan today, and that's a shot at the coach.
Yeah,
I mean that's a shot at the coach. Now, just like players have a fraternity, coaches have a fraternity.
Yep.
And coaches remember how you're throwing your coach under the bus. If you threw him under the bus, you throw me.
Coaches have a mortgage too.
That's right. And it's a team. It's a team. You got to take care of a team. And so, but now if you're off doing your commercials, when are you doing the studying? When are you doing? Because during the season, that time, Joe Burrow was first overall. Have you seen Joe Burrow in a commercial? You ever seen him endorsing Major?
No.
That's a good question.
Do you think he's been offered?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen him doing a commercial.
He hasn't done.
He hasn't done any.
He hasn't done anything.
No,
Zero.
We offered him a bucket of beer to do a read for us, and he wouldn't.
He'd do that before he would.
He's focused.
Commercial. But my point is
no, he plays it smart.
You asked me about the statements, bold statements. You got to have it. We haven't heard Joe Burrow talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
He puts the team before himself. When it's time to praise, he talks about the players around him. He talks about his team. When it's time to take the fault and the blame, he puts it on himself. He gets it. Psychologically, he can feel however he wants to feel about it. But he understands that every time he speaks, he's talking to his teammates. He's talking to his locker room. Yeah. He's leading.
Yeah.
And I wish Baker Mayfield would have understood that. Like, dude, you're talking to the guys that have to follow you. Now, they're going to follow you. You're talking bad about the coaches, talking about the game plan. They're going to begin to do the same thing. We saw Myles Garrett start doing it, and it spreads, good or bad.
Well, it turns into a cancer. Once it goes bad, it turns into a cancer, and the locker room, the locker room's fucked.
I think the first time I overtly saw a quarterback do that, where kind of what Burrow, sorry, Tebow, where that tear filled and whether crying or not is your thing. I don't care. But nonetheless, he took it on himself. He's like, I will never let the team down like that again.
Yeah, he was in college. I remember when he
it was a junior,
speech.
I think.
Tebow is a very genuine young man.
Yes.
I mean, I was very, very proud of him, the way he carried himself. And I think this league could have did better. Think about the way that offenses now cater and tailor the offense to the talent of the quarterback. Josh McDaniel was ready to do that for him in Denver. Then he lost his job there. And then the way that they went, I think John Fox came over and took over. No other coach was willing to do that for Tim Tebow. It's like a Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying Lamar needs a crutch. I'm not saying Tebow needed a crutch. But to get these guys on the field early, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, they're going to need, like Jalen Hurts, like what they did in Philly. They literally –
Taylor.
He was drafted in 2020, but in 2021, like around September, end of the month, that second year, they literally changed it to an RPO system, allowed him to do things a little bit different. His career took off.
Yeah. And I love that, the fact that they will tailor an offense and a scheme around the quarterback. If that's your most important asset, and I do remember Tebow, didn't he win that playoff game to keep him alive by the
he won a lot of games that year, and they beat Pittsburgh. There was no, but after that, his coach left. He didn't see more of that, and I think he could have continued to play at a high level had teams been willing to do that more than like they're willing to do today.
I like the fact that he took it on his own shoulders. I mean, he didn't blame anybody. He didn't put anybody down. It was him. And I think that there needs to be more of that, especially as a leadership role on a football team.
Von Miller once told me, I remember I was in a production meeting. He said Tim Tebow is the best leader he's ever been around.
I love his book.
And I believe it. I mean,
I absolutely believe it.
I could see that all day long.
Yeah.
Every year, Griffin and I go down to Gainesville for a football game. We always, while it's also a height thing, instead of putting notches on my door, I get a picture of him in front of Tebow's trophy outside of Ben Hill Griffin, which is what he's named after, is Griffin.
I never understood people that blew Tim Tebow so much shit during the time he was playing. I just thought it was totally unfair. I mean, the guy, all the guy wanted to do was win.
Yep,
that's right.
I mean, he may not have all the particular skills you need, but if I had a team full of guys like that, I'd be happy as you could possibly be.
Dan, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm saying this every single day. And Tim Tebow played the quarterback position, but he didn't play it like Joe Namath. He didn't play it like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. He was different. He was more runner than thrower, and he was a guy that one might hit the dirt, one might sail high, but in the fourth quarter, they all hit between the numbers.
Right.
This guy in the fourth quarter, he grew into, as the game went on, he figured it out. So he managed it in a way that by the time we got to the end, I got your number. I've watched them all fumble around with the Rubik's Cube, whether it's Tom Brady, whether you're Peyton Manning, but in the fourth, they click. They just lock in and bam, they got you. They figure you out, and there ain't no way they're going to lose. Joe Burrow does that in some games. He might start slow. He start, okay, what are they doing? Oh, they're blitzing, okay. Figure it out. Next thing you know, bam, 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 bam. Out of here with a win. So why does Tim Tebow have to look like them or do it like them? When we talk about diversity, people hear that word, it becomes this bugaboo. Yeah. Because they think it means only one thing, which shows you their lack of intelligence.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Ignorance.
That's right. Diversity means diversity in thought, diversity in skill set, the way that he writes, his penmanship is different than my penmanship. Yeah. The way that you process information, the way he processes it, that's diverse, right? And when we talk about quarterbacks coming into this league, I think our league is still, to this day, carrying some bias in how they want quarterbacks to play.
Yeah, well,
it's gotten better, though. It's gotten better.
Yeah, but when it came to Tebow, it was all about his arm angle, his release, the footwork, all that kind of stuff. Well, who cares? Who cares?
Have you ever seen Phillip Rivers throw a ball? Trust me. It wasn't pretty, but it got there.
He said, trust me.
It got there.
I remember guys like Billy Kilmer.
It's about results.
Look how ugly that was, but the guy won games, man.
It's about results. Yeah. Don't listen. How many times you hear guys say this? Don't tell me about tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby.
All right,
because we're talking about results, and all of a sudden it got to Tebow, and now the narrative changed. Now we want to talk about the labor pains.
Okay, now before we wrap this up, and
I got one question for him,
and I got one, and I want to talk. The guy I think is the most interesting.
By all means,
guy.
Go first, Dan.
I'm talking.
I know he is.
The guy who's the most interesting guy I think the Bengals drafted is the kid from Princeton, the wide receiver Andre Iosivas, and I think this guy could be. I think he could be the biggest surprise of the draft. I think he's going to be the guy that people want to see the most out there and see what he can do. This guy finished fourth in the NCAA heptathlon last year in the 2022 season. That's no joke.
I don't even know what a heptathlon is.
I mean, it's a bunch of different athletic events. It's like the pentathlon, but it's
you really defined that one. I'm
just saying he's going up against.
He's an athlete.
He's going up. He's a world class athlete.
He's a competitor,
and I think this guy can be. He's a wide receiver by trade, but I think this is a guy you can move around in a lot of different positions. What do you think about this kid from Princeton?
He's on the team because Darren Simmons signed off. He's an excellent wide receiver. There's a lot of things that he's going to have to learn. Like, when you go to Princeton, he's doing a lot of engineering school. He's taking his course load.
He went to Princeton. I don't think we're concerned about him being able to handle the learning curve.
But the football stuff, they're not putting, like, if you go to one of these Power 5 schools, they're putting a lot of time in football. You go to an Ivy League school, they put a lot of time in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they
actually go to class.
Well, I'm going to say at Colorado we went to class. But you're right. You're right.
Look, I'm not throwing anybody out.
I can't vouch for everybody.
Where's our football guys?
I can't vouch for everybody. But sight adjustment. So your wide receiver, there's this thing called sight adjustment. So the coverage rotates after the ball is snapped. You're around it. I doubt if he saw a lot of that. Okay. So there are a lot of things. And they're going to get him ready. But he's going to play a lot of special teams. To your point, what kind of athlete he is.
Yeah.
He is going to be a guy running down on kickoffs. He's that guy. And he can find a spot on this roster while he developed those other talents, right? But because he's a hard worker, because he's smart, that's why you can take him. Because, he can adapt to those things and ultimately become an excellent player, maybe that exceeds expectation.
Well, in baseball, they talk about the 5-tool player.
Yeah,
is this the equivalent of the 5-tool player in football?
Got all the tools, and now he needs to put it together right here in the NFL.
And
he's an exceptional player.
And I'm assuming, look at this,
4.43 40.
4.43.
Do you see him coming out of training camp though? If he makes the squad as a punt or kickoff returner, he's got the hands and the speed.
I doubt very seriously if you'll be handing this guy a bus ticket when this is all over. Because you have the practice squad, you have special teams. There's so many, and it's so much promise in terms of his talent and ability. It just depends on how quickly he can ascend.
Didn't Mike Brown go to Princeton?
Yes, he did. No, he went to Dartmouth. I'm sorry.
Dartmouth. Okay. Well, Ivy League.
He's Ivy League.
I think he'll stay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Got a soft spot there.
That's right. Well, I always say this, look, smart people figure it out. I don't ever underestimate intelligence. In fact, I expect it to succeed. The smart people figure it out. I tell my sons, I raised my boys, and I was like, hey, they were like, Dad, can you show me? And then they want me to do it. I was like, hey, dude, just keep at it. You're a smart kid. You'll figure it out. Just keep at it. Keep doing it.
Those are my favorite 3 words. Figure it out.
You'll figure it out. I remember I had 3 older brothers and a dad. I remember changing a flat tire on my bicycle. It took me the whole time, from the time I got home to school till night. It was dark. And I finally got that thing fixed. Couldn't ride the bike. But I figured. I learned that about myself. I refused to quit.
People wonder where self-esteem comes from.
Don't give it up.
That's where it comes from.
I wasn't going to give up. I was getting
you got it done.
I was going to get that flat fixed now.
I love it. I mean, you actually probably felt great. I figured that damn thing out.
Yeah, I would have felt better out. I got at least around the block before it got dark.
Let's give this thing a test ride.
It was there the next day.
I did. There's no doubt.
So with these players that you have on your list here, that the Bengals drafted, what would, from a former NFL player, what words of wisdom would you throw out to them to hopefully get them to succeed, but something that you learned to throw at them?
Come every single day with the intent to give your absolute best. There's not a single day and a single moment in meeting or practice that you can afford to waste. That before this season's over, we're going to need you. We're going to need you. I'm telling you right now, before the season's over, we're going to call on you, and we're going to need you to make some plays. Last year, it was an NFL record. the Kansas City Chiefs, who had lost a lot of good players due to free agency because their quarterback's on the mega contract. They want to blame it on the quarterback. But at the end of the day, they had at least 64 snaps. Well, more than that. It was basically they had 60. It was like they had a high volume of players, rookies, to play at significant starts. In other words, starting games or by 64 different snaps by players to start that actually won a championship. So I could have put that together a little bit better. But think about the volume of rookies having significant number of snaps that helped them win a Super Bowl championship. Sooner or later, everyone's going to be needed. And so at the end of the day, these guys are going to have to bring it.
Bring it every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Yep.
Every day.
Just like we do on the One More and I'm Out Here podcast.
Well, we tried to.
We bring it.
We tried
every time we do a podcast.
So it sounds like you can't have a Monday morning or a Friday afternoon in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, you can do that.
No, you'll have them, but you can't slow start and stay in the NFL, man. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee, talk to the Bobs about what I do during the day.
I would say you still gotta have fun, right? You guys know that, considering and see, and that's why
gives us an excuse to drink.
That's right. That's right.
As if we needed one.
Gotta have fun in this, right?
I do want to real quick shout out Varner Netherton Revival Cinco de Mayo at Belterra, 7 p.m. around there somewhere, but Cinco de Mayo.
It's coming up.
Dan Varner is awesome. Nick Netherton's awesome. Love the Varner Netherton Revival. Check them out. Belterra. They'll be on top of the sports page. It's not sports page. Shit. What is it called?
Stadium
Club. My
Stadium
bad.
Grill.
Yeah, they'll be up on top of the bar like they're levitating in air. So don't do mushrooms or acid before you go see them, or really freak you out. Should be a good time. I might be down there after I eat a bunch of tacos. But nonetheless,
Love tacos.
Oh, I do too. It is Taco Day today.
We expect
Taco
to see
Tuesday,
you,
baby.
Taco Tuesday,
especially considering Varner's a neighbor of yours. We're expecting to see you down there.
Dan Varner is the absolute best.
He is the best.
There's no doubt.
Our first sponsor,
yes,
and our charter sponsor,
and our first roadie,
and our first roadie.
He sets up our shit when we have speakers out front.
No,
great guy.
Dan is awesome. Dan got us in contact with you.
Yes,
and we appreciate you coming back, Solomon.
Definitely. Any chance to pick the wisdom of Mr. Wilcots is awesome because he is all things NFL, and
your podcast is Bleave, BLEAVE.
BLEAV.
Bleave
in Bengals.
Bleave in Bengals.
And it's great. Everybody,
thank you.
Check it out. Even if you're not a Bengals fan, this guy's speaking ability, like he just commands the room. Every time he's with us, he commands the room. He will give you some knowledge. Check out his podcast, please. Appreciate you guys all tuning in.
Solomon, thank you again. Can't thank you
Thanks
enough
for having me.
I'm
guys.
glad you showed
guys
up in
great.
person versus having to do a video.
Yeah, I know.
I enjoy hanging out with you in person.
I'm going to go down there, hang out with the guys, have a drink with you, and hopefully I'll remember what to say.
Yes. And you killed it as always.
You just made it up as you went along, brother. Thanks for being here, man. It's great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Well, everybody that's an NFL fan knows now the draft's over. We are one step closer to training camp.
That's right.
And the
There we
season.
go.
Thank God. Jesus. Well, the Reds are doing well, so a little something. But nonetheless, thank you. And come out Friday nights, the Varner Netherton. And we'll ask Varner if he knows if Dan, do you manscape?